The Abilene Chamber of Commerce takes its responsibility as the advocate for local business very seriously. It is important that voters go to the polls with the information they need to make wise decisions. Candidates in Texas House District 71, Taylor County Sheriff, and Taylor County Commissioner Precinct 1 races were given the opportunity to participate in video interviews at the Chamber. One candidate was unable to participate. Here are the interviews.
Today we're with the County Commissioner Randy Williams of Precinct 1. He's running for re-election. Commissioner Williams, why don't you give us a little information, a little bio?
Very brief. I was raised in Stockton, California, which is an inland port city in Northern California in the San Joaquin Valley. And I lived in Stockton until I was 28, at which time I came out here and to live. Did all kinds of work out there. I worked in the fields as a teenager, along with a lot of migrant farm workers, and those folks are hardworking. And worked with. Then I went to work for the Stockton Police Department in 1972. Did that for 4 years. Part of my career there was writing grants, and also worked in the youth division and for about 3 years. And the youth division experience is what kind of put me on my path for my earlier career, which was working in juvenile corrections. So I decided to go back to college and came out here. My best friend had graduated from ACU, and though they didn't have a law enforcement program, Hardin-Simmons did, so I was on a joint law enforcement degree program. Met my wife in course at ACU, and couldn't afford to go there any longer than just the 1 year, because it was a little pricey. Not as pricey as it was for my daughter when she went there, but anyway, and so I decided I really couldn't afford to go there more than the 1 year. Went back to California, finished up in 1 year at Cal State, and moved back out here to pursue my wife. And we got married in 1980. We've raised 3 children. My oldest son is a counselor for Winters ISD. My oldest daughter works for Blue Cross Blue Shield. And my youngest daughter and her husband are working with the International House of Prayer in Kansas City. So I don't think they're going to get to go to the football game this weekend. But anyway, so that's kind of my family background. I went to work here in 1981 with the County Juvenile Department. I was a probation parole officer. And in 1984, when we opened up the new jail and the juvenile detention center, I ran that for the first 5 years. And then I was promoted to Assistant Chief of Fiscal Services, and I was a grant writer there. Did that for up until about 1989, and then I was promoted to Deputy Chief, and I did that for about another till 2008.
Okay. Why should people vote for you?
Because I'm the most qualified individual running for this office. I've spent a good number of years working with multi-million-dollar budgets, and have 15 years of experience of actually doing that with the county. A lot of people don't really know what county government, what we do. The legislature passed created county government for us to do their business on the local level. Part of that relationship is that when they have a great idea about something they think they want to do, but they don't have the money to do it, they will pass it as a law, hand it down to us as a mandate, and then we have to do it. We have to fund it. The source of our funding primarily is ad valorem property tax. We do get some fees and fines and that sort of thing. Those get harder and harder to collect because we have a lot of people that say, I'll sit out my time in jail rather than pay my fine or fee. So not only do we not collect the money for their fine or fee, but now they cost us money because we have them incarcerated. So, but that's what we do. We're over roads. There's 4 precincts in every county, and we're split up based on population. Have about 180 miles of road. About 60% of those roads are paved.
They used to call you all road commissioners.
They used to. Originally, we were called road commissioners. In fact, one of the things that you discover in the restoration of the old courthouse, they used to have residences in there. And so the commissioners would come to town like once a month, and they would live there. And they would do county business, pay bills, whatever they needed to be done. And then they go back to their farms and their ranches. And a lot of people don't know that used to go on. There's tie-ups around the courthouse for horses, and there. I think Judge Bowles had found an old bill for water for putting watering troughs for the horses, so yeah, it used to be called road commissioners. That is a really different thing because a lot of people think, well, it's just a part-time job. No, it's not a part-time job.
So are those mandates the things that are the toughest things for you to face?
Well, they're difficult to face, but when they come to you without any choice about what you're going to do, it's a lot of people will look to us and they'll say, well, my property taxes are too high. Well, you got to look at why are your property taxes too high? And when we don't have a choice of how we fund it, then that can result in us having to raise taxes. I don't know anybody that's ever elected into public office who says, I want to raise taxes. That's ludicrous. We go in and we try to take, I'll give an example. Last year, based on what we projected revenues to be, we had an $18 million deficit in what was being requested. And so we had to figure out, and it's not just me, we have all the members of the court, our auditor, department heads. A lot of people have their hands on that budget trying to figure out what the best thing is to do. We have the ultimate say on what that budget ends up being, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The county's experiencing quite a bit of growth. Mm-hmm. How is Precinct 1 coping with that?
It's interesting. In the last 2 years, we have approved 24 additional subdivisions. Most of that growth...
Just in your precinct?
No.
Oh, okay.
In the whole county. My precinct, we approved one subdivision. There aren't very many subdivisions in my precinct, and part of the reason why is Dulles Air Force Base. A lot of people just don't want to live in that area. They feel like it's too loud, the planes are too loud, they got babies, whatever. So there's been very little development in Precinct 1 over the years. In fact, you can take an aerial photograph from 50 years ago out around Dulles Air Force Base, and then take another one today, and there's not that much development. Petrosmith maybe has been the biggest development out there, but I just don't have a lot of them. Most of that growth is in Precinct 3, a little bit in Precinct 4.
Yeah.
So.
Speaking of Dulles, what does Precinct 1 do for or with Dulles?
Interesting you asked that. Yeah, so before I even took office, I got a phone call from some property owners that live out around Dulles Air Force Base. They were kind of all up in arms, and they knew I was going to be coming into office. They were upset with the city of Abilene, who had passed an airport zoning ordinance. No one seemed to know anything about this zoning ordinance. So they had a meeting and were saying that what the city had passed was very onerous against their property, was a pretty significant hammer on their property rights, and they wanted my help to help them do something about it. So we spent quite a bit of time meeting with city officials. They looking at it. I think some of them realized we kind of didn't do this right, and so they invited the property owners and myself into a process of rewriting that airport zoning ordinance so that no one got exactly what they wanted, but it was something everybody could live with. And so Dulles, because it is in my precinct, has been a huge part of what we do out there. So what we've been working on for the last 15 years, and it's constant, is how do we protect the mission of Dulles Air Force Base, but yet at the same time protect the property rights of the people who have property out there around the base. And we've been pretty successful with that. Yeah.
I know one of the big issues that the commissioners talk about is emergency medical services. Mm-hmm. And I know in meetings I've sat through of the commissioners, there seems to be a wide range of opinion about how good a job we are currently doing. What's your evaluation?
Well, the ambulance service, which is what we're talking about, is the history in that was that it used to be an all-volunteer group, and I think MetroCare used to sort of back them up, and so Then several years ago, the city was concerned about their response times within the city, and so MetroCare kind of pulled back. They'll still do some backup if it's really needed, but they kind of pulled back out of the county. So then STEMS, which is South Taylor County South Taylor County Emergency Medical Services, they added another ambulance back then, but it was never meant to be a Taylor County operated facility or totally funded facility. So, but little by little, we have tried to help them grow because the county is growing. And you talk about growth in the county. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, we've added all those subdivisions. You have to have law enforcement. You have to have medical care. Now, by law, we don't have to fund emergency medical services. We do it because it's the right thing to do for the population. People that live in town here say, well, I pay taxes locally and we have an ambulance service. Well, yeah, but if you're heading to San Angelo and you're heading up the hill out there on 277 and you have a wreck, do you want a farmer just throw you in the back of their pickup truck and haul you to the hospital? I don't think so. So we know that those are serious issues out there. Right now, we're in the process of getting ready to go out for bid for ambulance service. We've had that service for quite some time, but ever so often you should go out for bid anyway. It's a responsible way of doing government. Make sure what you're getting is adequate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I lost my place. Oh, you got some pretty good funding from the federal government during COVID.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's really been used for a variety of things. Mm-hmm. How much is left that can be spent, and how are you going to recoup?
Yeah, there's probably about between 6 and 8 million. There's some of that has obligated already to projects, but about 6 to 8 million. I'm really been pushing to get that released out to the public. We've had a committee and they've approved an application. The application, I believe, is available through our auditor's office. So I'm hoping to get that knocked out. There's a lot of talk about how to use those funds. There's not consensus necessarily on some of that stuff.
How do you want to use it?
Well, part of it, I want to put it out there. There's a lot of folks. Well, let's say, for instance, the Expo Center is a classic example. When we went into COVID with the Expo Center, they were in pretty good shape financially. They had some good fairs and stuff. They had put money aside, and we're going to count on that money. That once we got all of the new buildings built, then they were going to be able to come in and kind of help with some of the costs of maintaining those buildings, because anybody that knows about construction knows the cheapest thing you did was you built it. Now maintaining it's going to cost quite a bit of money. And so they had done that. But COVID, they had a lot of events cancel on them, pull out, and so they had to begin to pull money from those funds that they had set aside just to stay afloat. So yeah, but now the buildings are open and they're doing a great job out there bringing new events in.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. We got 2 minutes to go. What should the Commissioner's Court do in working with this Sheriff's Department?
Oh, yeah, I work really well with the Sheriff's Department. He also serves as a volunteer fire chief, which is right next to my precinct barn out in View. He and I have had a real good relationship. One of the things that I've never liked in terms of the way we typically have handled budgets in years past has been the court deciding what does the sheriff need or not need. So he doesn't need 10 cars, we'll give him 8 cars. Or he doesn't need this, we'll give him. I don't like doing business like that. I've said it before. Same thing with the DA. These people are elected to do a job. I'm not the sheriff. I don't really know what his needs are. And so I'm hoping this next year that we can go back to a system kind of like what the state does. The state, when they have a budget shortage, they'll just tell their state, all of their departments, you got to cut your budget by 5%. I kind of want to get to that more of a thing where we say we can fund all but $300,000 of your request. So you need to trim it down $300,000. You decide where that comes from. That's what I want to have happen. The sheriff is doing a real good job. I mean, we had a surprise visit from on jail standards a couple of weeks ago, passed with flying colors. We've renovated the law enforcement center, but they're having to share that space with some other agencies, a couple of JPs and adult probation. I don't know at this point exactly who's going to move back into the old courthouse, but hopefully we might be able to free up some space whenever that happens for them to be able to expand.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming in and answering our questions.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.